Hello guys and welcome to another video. My name's Mark, I'm an entrepreneur and property investor, and in today's video we're talking about the only two assets that I'm going to be betting my future wealth on. And there really is only two assets, and the reason behind that, I'm going to give you all the psychology, everything, my research, just so that you can understand why there really is only two assets and why some of my friends and some of my fellow investors think that's boring. And I agree, maybe it is boring, but ultimately there really is only two assets that I'm massively interested in order to bet my future on. So before we get into the video, before we go into that, if you could give it a massive like, it really helps me out with the YouTube algorithm. And remember, we don't charge anything, there's no course to sell, there's no other revenue that I create from this channel other than to give this information to you. So if you could give it a like, helps me out. And also, if you haven't already subscribed, why not consider subscribing? Remember, as there's no course to sell, there's no incentive for me to hold any information back. So I give everything I possibly can out with as much honesty and as much transparency as I possibly can. So guys, let's get into the video and let's have a talk about the two assets. Now, anybody who watches my channel regularly will probably know what they are, and the first one's going to be property. I've got £3 million worth of property, got about £1.7 million worth of debt on that property, and it generates me, I don't know, somewhere in the region of about 10 grand a month. So property is something that I massively believe in, because regardless of what the economy looks like, people always need somewhere to live. And regardless of what those people do within the economy, they need somewhere to live. So we have a seismic shift in the way the economy functions. Let's talk about COVID. Let's think about how people switched their lives to being online during lockdowns. Well, they still lived somewhere. And I think that regardless of what people do for employment, they will still go to work, they will still get 25% of their money, and they'll give it to their landlord. Now, obviously there's a section of society that's going to buy their home, but in the rental society, it doesn't really matter to me what they do for an occupation. What matters to me is that the rent gets paid, and the rent will be in line with the economy. So if you look at the economy and rents and house prices, they generally all move together. So I think that a bet on property is a bet on UK PLC. And what UK PLC looks like today and what it might look like in the future might be vastly different, but that won't matter to me as long as the fundamentals stay the same. And I believe in the fundamentals. I believe that inflation will stick around. Why do I believe that? Because it's a driver for growth. Every economist agrees that it's a driver for growth, and I believe that the people who make the rules will ensure that that continues. Why is it a driver for growth? Let's explain that very briefly. Because ultimately, if you had a car, and let's say for example that car was brand new, 25 grand, but next year it was going to be 20 grand, and the year after it's going to be 15 grand. Well, what happens is people delay purchasing. And when people delay purchasing, there's less demand. When there's less demand, there's less jobs. It has a knock-on effect throughout the entire economy. What you need is steady inflation. So if the car that's 25 grand this year, next year is 26 grand. The year after it's 27. People don't delay purchases. Demand stays steady. You are able to create the environment in which people want to spend. So that is the reason why inflation will always be here, in my opinion. And the people that make the rules will manipulate things. They'll print more money, lower interest rates. There's a wide variety of things people can do in control, like the Bank of England, in order to make sure that inflation is around. So my belief is inflation's here to stay forever. My belief is that the UK PLC will continue to grow, and over that period of time I want a slice of whatever it looks like. And it doesn't matter to me whether we're mining or whether we're a high-tech economy. Ultimately, I want a slice of whatever it is. So about 25% of household take-home pay is roughly what they pay on rent. Let me look that up actually. Okay, so the article I just looked at said actually it's 35% of UK household take-home pay is spent on rent, which, you know, is in the same sort of ballpark as what I was thinking. But yeah, ultimately that's a bet on UK PLC. Now, so the first thing that I'm really interested in is property. And at the moment that's UK based. But there's no reason in my mind why later that couldn't be worldwide, why I couldn't be purchasing property all over the world and taking a slice of whatever their economies are like over in different places around the world. Maybe America, maybe France, maybe on the continent over in Germany, I don't know. But ultimately I could take a slice of anywhere, and I think property is a great way to own a slice of those countries' economies. Now the second thing that I massively believe in, and again if you're regular to this channel, you will know this, it is index funds. and in particular global index funds. Now, why do I like global index funds? Now, what an index fund essentially is a basket of traded securities. So if you think about the FTSE 100, there's 100 of the largest companies in the UK that are traded on that. And the index fund automatically owns all of them. And as certain companies become more valuable, it buys more of them. And as other ones become less valuable, it sells them off. So you automatically get market returns. So what does this mean? Why do I like that? Well, essentially it means that regardless of what happens on the macro environment, I've got a slice of it. If China becomes the world's superpower over the next 100 years, as their stock goes up in value, I will automatically buy more of it. Let's say, for example, I don't know, South Korea is just doing this. Well, I'm going to stick with that amount of South Korea. And the reason that's important to me is I don't miss out on any of the gains from certain countries, and I don't miss out on the opportunity to sell down as other countries underperform. So for me, index funds, again, it's allowing me a slice globally of all the businesses that are traded in the world. And why that's so attractive to me, it means that I can live in the UK, there's very little management that I have to do other than to purchase this on a regular basis. And I'll explain how I buy both of these. Both of these I'm dollar cost averaging. So what that means is every year, regardless, I have an intent to buy index funds about £40,000 worth, and of property about 200,000 to 400k. Very much depending on where I am in a liquid position in terms of refinances and things like that. But there's between 200 and 400k in property, which for me is about 50 grand to, I don't know, 100 grand in, and about 40k of index funds. I personally prefer property because it's a leveraged asset. I know done in the right way, I can generate really healthy returns. Property in the UK, single lets, I'm averaging about 10%. On a HMO or multi-let, 20%-ish is about where I can get it. And obviously once I've held the properties for a little bit of time, they become infinite when we refinance and get all our money out. But it's important to say I can generate between 10 and 20% returns on my capital if I've got the capital today. Index funds, they're bumbling along at anywhere on an average, and very important to say that, of 8 to 9%, something like that. The global index is somewhere in that region. So you're looking at between 8 and 9% annual growth. Once you've minus off inflation, you're looking at 5 to 6%, something like that. And there's about 1 to 2% of dividends. So that's the sort of region that you're looking at. And I think by buying both of these two assets, I'm setting myself up in a way that I know that the outcome of both of these is likely to be on an upward trajectory. If you look over a long enough period of time, a 10, 20, 30-year period, generally speaking, the markets in both of these instances go something like that. And if it goes something like that, it doesn't really matter whether I buy here, 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 or here, because ultimately, by the time I get to 50, 60, I'm going to look really, really good. So guys, those are the only two assets I'm buying, and that's all I'm betting my future on. What are you betting your future on? Property, index funds, those are the only things for me. What are you betting your future on? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm massively interested. I bet some people are heavily into crypto and they've enjoyed amazing gains for the last few years. I also know that if I put £100,000 in and got 1,000% return for 4 years in a row, I'm going to have all the money in the world. And I don't personally think that that is possible. And I know that's unpopular. I know a lot of people would love to believe that that is possible. I personally don't. But let me know in the comments. I'm massively interested. And guys, I will respond to every single one of you. So I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Property and index funds, that's all I'm betting on. See you soon, guys. Bye-bye. Boom.